has announced he's retiring. I've said he retires because I couldn't get retiring in the graphics part, but he's retiring, I do believe.
Yeah.
Now, normally I would have said, I didn't even realise he was still drumming.
Yeah.
But I was looking into Pete relatively recently, and I did look into what he was up to, and he's still been drumming. Which, fair play to him, man. If you have a setback like getting kicked out the greatest band of all time before it even kicks off, in earnest, and then you decide you want to go back to drumming, then I tip my hat to you, mate, because I would have PTSD, not want to come out my house ever again, let alone go behind a drum kit again. That would just bring up bad memories. So I commend him for continuing with the drumming for as long as he has. Obviously, he's getting older now. He must be in his 80s. He's 83. So obviously, you get to a certain age, physically, you're just not capable of drumming anymore to the same level. I can't say I've seen any of his recent stuff, Stephen. I don't know if you have. What he's been up to.
No, not recently. I've seen some of his stuff from, the past. Between now and the 1980s, I've seen his sort of performances, and listen, I'm not a drum expert or anything like that by any means, but he didn't have the same sort of groove as Ringo and the same personality as Ringo. I think that was one of the biggest issues, was it? He just didn't have that fit. And although you can have your friends in your band, but the sort of bigger picture is if you want to be the best, you have to, pardon the pun, you have to obviously have the best, and I do feel sorry for the guy, to be fair, because as you said, psychologically that affects you for the rest of your life. No matter what you do, you're never going to top the Beatles in terms of
and you were there
in a band, and top band. And and having that sort of constant reminder of what could have been, and I know that he's made appearances on Letterman, in the past, and he's probably released books as well, and his story to the newspapers and stuff like that. But it's never going to make up the sort of everything that he missed, and it was just one of those opportunities, or missed opportunities in his case, that just wasn't meant to be, and I think no one can sort of imagine Ringo not being there, know. So I think the way it was treated was probably pretty shabbily, but listen, the guy's continued on for the best part of 7 decades, what it may be. I would say probably 7, because he probably was in his teens when he first started playing the drums. So he's been doing it a long time, but as you said, especially a physical instrument like drums, you have to be pretty fit. And I think Ringo's pretty fit for a guy his age.
Yeah.
But I hope he enjoys his retirement. I know he got a kind of slight financial boost in the mid-90s with the Beatles anthology, because his drumming appeared on a couple of the early, I think, Decca recordings.
Yeah.
In Anthology 1 CD. So there was a financial boost there. I think he made a few million out of it. So small sort of wins, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, because he missed out on all those experiences with the other 3 guys, in terms of going to America and going to India and Australia and making those films in the mid-60s, and who knows where it would have took him if things turned out differently, and I'm sure that's probably went through his head a few times as well. I did read, John, and maybe someone in the comment section can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think I might be wrong in saying this. It might just be tabloid chat, but I think there was his mental health was affected badly by it, for a long time, and it takes a strong person to come through that.
I think he's always remained quite humble and gracious about it, though, Stephen. I've seen him on chat shows talking about it, and he's never came across as being bitter. Obviously, the rationale for why he get kicked out, being a little bit dour, not as sharp-witted, not as technically gifted on the drums, that could properly annoy people. And I'm sure it annoyed him when he was younger, but certainly as he matured, he didn't seem to have any bitterness towards the other Beatles members. I think he realised it was probably the right decision for the band. Maybe not for him personally, but for the band, having Ringo in there. Ringo is a great drummer. So a lot of shit gets chatted about Ringo.
But it's a private thing with Pete Best, though, John, that I don't think he'd come out and say that. But
No.
I think maybe, you know, in his own sort of mind, he's made peace with that. And
Yeah.
I think the thing that probably bothered him the most was he didn't understand the reason, and there was no official sort of reason. It was just you're out and that's that kind of thing. And I don't think he was able to have closure on the actual reason. So, yeah, I mean,
it was heavily hinted, wasn't it? It was just, he was late over in Hamburg. He wasn't turning up for performances. Ringo had to come in. Obviously, personality-wise, he just didn't connect with the other three. The other three were very sharp and quick and had a certain kind of humour. Ringo matched that. Obviously, in terms of looks and height, I think Pete would have probably been a better fit. I don't think there's many people out there would say that Ringo was better looking than Pete Best. Obviously, he's much shorter in stature, whereas Pete was a little bit tall. I'm not saying he was tall, but he was certainly closer to the other three. So in terms of aesthetics, he would have probably been a better fit. But personality and drumming, I don't think there can be any argument that Ringo was definitely the better drummer. Much sharper of wit, one of the sharper ones. And you've seen that Stephen Ian getting into the 80s. You can tell he's hitting the drink and whatnot, and he's maybe not in a great place. He's talking about insomnia and whatnot, the loss of John. But he still maintains that sharp wit, Ringo. Even into the 80s, even into the 2000s, probably now, he's a very sharp guy. So I can understand. I feel for him. I'm glad he's had a career outside of the Beatles. Obviously, he's not been anywhere near as famous, but he's had a career. He's made his peace with it. Now he can retire and have a quiet life in his 80s. Hopefully, live a very long life. Because, I mean, it's we've seen what happened to the other unofficial Beatles. Well, he was an official Beatles member. He didn't even make it into his fucking 20s or late 20s, mid-20s. Stuart Sutcliffe I'm talking about. So, you can there's always wins in life, little wins in life. You didn't die of a brain hemorrhage. You had a life. You had a drumming career. You weren't a Beatle when they became big, but you've got the memories, and that's all that matters. But what is life if not for memories? It's about where you've been in memories, you know, and living forever and all that jazz. But yeah, did they say anything? I do wonder. I'm going to bring this up very quickly and read it. I've not actually read the article in depth. I think he did. Wrote Best's younger brother, so it was Rogue, his brother, who wrote, well, what an absolutely wonderful ride we've had. However, everything comes to pass. My brother Pete Best has announced today he's retiring from personal appearances and performing with the group. His daughter has informed me it's due to personal circumstances. Well, I hope he's not got anything going on in terms of health issues. Hopefully he's healthy, man. And it's just maybe he's getting older, he just can't do it. Had a blast, thank you. That's what Pete wrote. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, Stephen. Obviously, you feel sorry for the guy, because when you've got situations like his, I mean, I can't think of very many other than maybe Brian Jones and the Rolling Stones, where obviously he turned heavily to drugs, but he did have the fame and the fortune. He just wasn't built for it. And you can talk about the demise of Brian and what happened to him. Did he kill himself? Was he murdered? There's a whole conspiracy with that, but I think it's pretty clear. Keith Richards and Mick Jagger and the other Stones were with him. And obviously Keith didn't treat him greatly. I think he stole his girlfriend and married her. There was a lot of stuff going on in the studio and whatnot. But it's pretty clear Brian wasn't cut out for fame. So, and obviously the way that he shuffled off the mortal coil wasn't phenomenal. But we've seen this before. There's stories like this where people do maybe depart bands at different stages and they go on to have even more success and they're maybe left behind. I don't know where I'm going with that, because Brian Jones, I'd argue the Stones were better with Brian Jones, but that's another thing entirely.
The thing is, you're right, some people just aren't built for fame, and who knows what would have came of Pete Best if he remained in the Beatles, would have been able to handle it. Because I think, what was the phrase, mean, moody and magnificent? I think he came across, you know, in those early interviews and appearances very awkward and shy. You know, he wasn't pretty comfortable with the attention in those early days. So you just don't know. I mean, it's definitely a what-if situation, isn't it? And I mean, listen, he's remained consistent in terms of you know, making his own music and doing his own thing. I think it's just that sort of will to live and will to succeed to a certain level, because you have to make peace with the fact that you're not in the Beatles anymore, and there's nothing going to. I mean, Paul McCartney kind of went through this after the fame, didn't he? You know, where he knew his next step was not going to be the Beatles, and I think that depressed him. It really depressed him. So this is a sort of flip side of that. You know, with Pete Best, he kind of had to sort of negotiate his way through life, not knowing what could have been. You know, and in terms of Paul McCartney, he'd experienced all this, and then it came to a sudden halt. So they've all had their sort of trials and tribulations from being part of this band in some way or another. I noticed in that Rolling Stone magazine article there, they mentioned Pete Best as the original fifth Beatle. I don't regard him as a fifth Beatle. He was a Beatle.
He was a Beatle. There was no fifth Beatle at that point.
Yeah,
there was only four.
I mean, that would imply, I suppose you could say, if you're going to do that, then Stu Sutcliffe must have been the fourth one, then, because there were five of them at that time. So maybe that's the way they're sort of wording it. But
I mean, Stuart would have been the fourth because he was there when there was only three of them. And obviously he bought the bass guitar, didn't he, with his art money. I think he sold a painting, didn't he?
Sold a painting, yeah.
Yeah. They forced him to buy a bass and they had to play in the wrong key and everything and turn away. Poor bastard. Yeah, I mean, Stuart's a whole other thing. I mean, that's just tragic what happened to him. That's a whole other story, really. And obviously, I'm going to let my dog in 2 seconds because he's there you go, he's in anyway. There's my dog in. Yeah, you want to come up and see? Yeah, there you go, there's my dog in. You were whining at the door, my man. Well, yeah, there's my dog. Yep. There's Harley on. What have you got to say about Stuart Sutcliffe and Pete Best? Rip. Right, there you go, back down. But yeah, I mean, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, the fifth Beatle, I'm not having that, Steve. He certainly wasn't the fifth Beatle. He was a Beatle. The dark and mysterious and moody Beatle. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't think he'd have been cut out for it, Stephen. I mean, it's one thing being moody and mysterious in Liverpool in the Cavern Club, but it's a whole other thing when you're in the middle of a storm where you've got people fighting to get at you, you've not got any peace and quiet, you've got no real life outside of touring in the early days. No. I think that's a specific challenge for really special people, and those 4 guys certainly had it. I don't think Pete would have had it to make it. I think Ringo ultimately, again, was the right choice. So, also, we're getting off piece because he's retired and we're bringing Ringo in, his arch nemesis, back into the conversation. I'm sure if Pete was unfortunate enough to see us talking, he'd be wanting to kill us. He'd be like, "Are you talking about him? Fucking bastard, stole my job. Stop talking about him. This is about me and me retiring. He's over in LA and I'm stuck here. Stop talking about that wee guy." I'm just looking at these adverts. Aging like fine wine. 9 women who look better after 50. What are you giving me that? What are you trying to say? Fucking 36. I'm not interested in women after 50. Behave yourself. He's like a fucking bull. He's come into the room and is absolutely destroying things round about me. Jesus H. Christ. But I digress, Dean. If we get anything else to say, or shall we move on to a topic about another drummer from another band? What is going on here, man? I'm going to go to a wide shot to see if we can see this. We can't see it. Just poking his nose through. He's under the desk now. Fantastic. Fantastic. The Doctor. Shall we move on to topic?